the whole idea of these pieces lasting longer than I'm going to be, they have to speak for me when I'm gone. And also, it takes eons of years for a felspathic rock to decompose into clay. Then I'm firing it back up like a rock, and it's going to be a few eons of years before these go back to clay. They never will for them. And I feel a personal responsibility to do my very best on every piece, not just to let one go. This is where the MINDSCAPES, that title came from, this piece here. And it's kind of interesting because when you do things like this, you don't know if anybody's going to accept it or not. I spent 2 or 3 weeks drawing this piece, and it's drawn with an underglazed pencil, and then I just let my imagination run, and I started seeing things in it, like you see things in the clouds, and what I would do is just bring those out. A lot of people will come into it and go, oh, I didn't see these fish up here. I've got a Volkswagen bug right there.
I saw that.
And then it actually goes into a breast on the other side. Forrest Goodhue.
Yes, I saw Forrest.
You see Forrest?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in
He's
there.
right here.
He's been popping up in my drawing. When the guy takes your class for 15 years, he's in everything I do. Failure is a very strong motivator because you have nothing to lose. If something's absolutely perfect and just the way you want it, then you're less likely to be risky and do something creative with it. This piece was a total failure. It was I had stannous, very chloride I put on it. It was way too dark, and so I'm thinking, okay, and it hit me in the middle of the night. It's really dark. I want to go with a light colored glaze. As a texture glaze, that it would actually, that dark would show around the edges. And I'm very pleased with it now. I think it worked out pretty well. This piece had a half-inch crack down the middle, and I tried to figure out what am I going to put in that crack. And my first thought was McDonald's French fries, they'll last forever if I put them in there. And I said, no, I'm going to put glass. I think one of my students suggested glass. And I started putting it in. The name of it is Arctic Thaw. A lot of my titles come after I complete the piece. Sometimes I don't know where I'm going with the pieces. And that's not a bad place to be, because sometimes if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace you've never been. Associate mine, he asked me, what can I do to improve my work? So let the clay look like clay. I'm thinking about that on most of my pieces, as well as things I've mentioned earlier. How can I make this look like clay? And pinching and doing different things to it, and I'm getting that clay feel. And all through the years I had my nose up in the air on my low temperature, and now I'm firing to low temperature on these pieces. And it's okay. And this was my alchemy piece, but it's also converging to singularity, the black hole idea. And I put a big sheet of a stained glass, and not a big, but a round piece of stained glass in that, and melted it in, and it looked absolutely terrible. And so I said, well, it's one of those things you have nothing to lose. So I took my hammer and chisel, and I started chiseling the glass out, and finally got the shape that I thought was interesting. And then what I did after that, I put gold over this whole black edge, and it looked horrible because it was like too gaudy. So I taped off a few little edges, and I sandblasted the gold off. So I have the gold here. This is what this whole thing looked like before I sandblasted it, what's inside this triangle. This is my homage to Venus of Willendorf. And I'm familiar with the cave woman.
Uh-huh.
And that's, when I did this, I thought about her. And sometimes you have to let go of a piece before you can arrive at it. And so I was like, nothing was working. And so I took a board and whacked it. And then I whacked it again. And it started working after I did that. Sometimes it frees you up. Like, you're so careful with these pieces. You touch them 1,000 times where they don't look like they've been touched at all. And sometimes you just have to, heck with it, I'm gonna whack it. And I did that, and that opened it up, and then I started making other marks on it, and it worked after that. So this is number one. Yeah, we started with number one. And as I said, that most of my pieces I have failure is a very strong motivator because you have nothing to lose. If something's absolutely perfect and just the way you want it, then you're less likely to be risky and to do something creative with it. This piece, I was totally dissatisfied when it came out of the kiln, and I was ready to give it away. Because sometimes when you have this preconceived idea and it didn't match, it's hard to adjust. And the more I look at it, the more I like it. It's one of my more favorite pieces of the show now, but I didn't like it when it first came out of the kiln. But this piece here, this is a textured piece that I consider moving towards singularity. So it's like the dark or black hole and everything becoming one, moving toward a black hole. And that's basically what I see on this piece. And I have another series that we'll look at a little bit later that is also moving towards singularity as well. I don't know if you want to talk about every piece, but
well, we could.
Want to look at every piece?
Well, I personally don't mind.
Some of it.
We'll probably have to, cut some of it for time. I mean, I really don't know how long we want this to go.
Yeah, I have 71 pieces.
Well, maybe we could just walk through and talk about the standouts, in your opinion.
Let's do that. I think this is one of the standouts, and what I really like about this piece, these were sheets of stained glass that I put on here and melted in, and then to actually get the stained glass to cooperate with the background and to actually move into the background, I put sandblasting on top of it. I'm always looking for another layer that I can put on top in case it doesn't match my expectations of what it should be. And this is a sandblasting, and just putting tape on and cutting it even. And this again, that outer space look, moving towards singularity on this piece. I don't know what to say about this piece. And to me, it's the ocean and the waves. And this is one of those pieces that I was not happy with, and I just threw a bunch of white glaze on. And it went into the finger painting mode, reducing back to my childhood, and doing the finger painting until I like what I get, and then fired it. And now I like it. I like it at this point. I just won't accept it as it is if I don't think it's at the degree where it should be as far as quality. And that's just something I feel inside. When it's there, bam, I made it. This is the outer space feeling as well. And what I did on this one, which was a little bit different, I got one more like it. I put texture on top and sandblasted to the texture. So that's what this kind of a grid is about. And tie that down, I went back in with these marks coming through here. So when I'm sandblasting it, I usually spend all day sandblasting because I do one line at a time. Okay, let me see what line goes next. I try to do 5 or 6 lines at one time, and it's just contrived. This way I get more spontaneity. This piece, it's my bird fossil, a bird image, and then in between. And I was very pleased with this outside edge. It kind of looks like a nest. And what I did on this one, when I did the finger painting, I used my fingernail to actually get these nice lines, almost like thorns, and then the white glaze on the inside, finger painting, and then working on top of it with a kind of a fossil type bird image. And I think one of the strengths in my show is my diversity. I don't usually I'll work in threes, and I'll put pieces together with 3 pieces, trying to figure out what I'm going to do, and then I get bored with it and move on to the next 3. I don't just reproduce the same thing or solve the problem the same way. I'm always looking for a new way to solve the problem. And that's very important to me. This piece was a total failure. It was, I had ferric chloride I put on it. It was way too dark. And so I'm thinking, okay, and it hit me in the middle of the night. If it's really dark, I want to go with a light colored glaze. As a texture glaze, that it would actually, that dark would show around the edges. And I'm very pleased with it now. I think it worked out pretty well. This piece is Unmentionables, is the name of it. And I won't go into that.
Now these next 2, they're wheel made?
Yes. And what I did a whole series, and I'm going to say a series, probably about 10 pieces with the edges looking like bones. And I'm contemplating my own immortality when I'm doing those. And I'm okay with that, because as soon as you are accepting of dying, then you can live. Sometimes you want to make it okay instead of fear, instead of being, oh my God, I'm going to die, what am I going to do? And then that's what I was doing with these. And then creating something on the interior. And the whole idea of these pieces lasting longer than I'm going to be here. They have to speak for me when I'm gone. And also, it takes eons of years for a felspathic rock to decompose into clay. Then I'm firing it back up like a rock, and it's going to be a few eons of years before these go back to clay. They never will if they're indoors. And I feel a personal responsibility to do my very best on every piece, not just to let one go, because these are going to be here. Jeez, I want people to look at it and say Blanton on the backside, that it means quality, and that's what I want. And I feel pretty good about that. Again, just finger painting, and I'm really pleased with the color on this. The name of this is Butterscotch. I always have 2 or 3 names on my pieces. Sometimes the title will evolve, And this was Butterscotch, and then it was I Am. So it's my godlike image, and also something that's kind of a heavy-duty subject. Also, I like light titles too, which is Butterscotch. And that's just a double O clear, which is on top of porcelain, turning that color out, and I was very surprised.
How much the color?
Nice surprise.
It's very natural looking too.
Very spontaneous. I've got a story about almost all of these. I was talking to somebody about, they went fishing in Rockport, Texas, and I was working on this piece, and it's very chaotic. And I'm thinking about Rockport, I'm thinking about fishing poles going everywhere, and I'm going, why am I doing this Rockport, and it's all topsy-turvy? right after I finished this piece is when when the storm came through and destroyed Rockport. I'm sure they rebuilt. I haven't been back since, but this piece kind of represented Rockport to me. But I did it ahead of the storm, instead of behind it. And this piece is the Bone series again. I was working with the bones kind of lightly, and then I had these little animal-like insects. They're having a little war, fighting each other, and those were kind of fun to do. Kind of a nice little surprise when you get pulled in to see what's going on. And a little bit of pink that's in there, that's China paint. I'm beginning to layer China paint into my pieces after I fire it. So that's another layer that I'm finding out works pretty well for me. It's too bad I don't have these tags on here. It's kind of interesting. We're going around the wall, but we'll go ahead and look at this one piece right here. This small piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very personal piece. It's the first pot I ever made.
Oh.
And I made it in 1966.
How old were you when you made it?
Oh, probably 16. I was in high school. And my art teacher was just like, she's a typical grandmother. And she brought up her own clay, she brought up her own kiln. And we made these people brought up our own glazes. And that was my first pot.
Good job.
I gave it to my mom, and my mom gave it back to me.
She probably held on to it for all those years,
Absolutely.
of course. And then,
I know. So I feel pretty good. It was pretty nice. I just set it next to this bulbous type piece here. This is my Vortex series. When I went to Sedona, Arizona, they have different hills that are sandstone, and they have energy that's entering and exiting the earth. And that's what they believe in that. I kind of experienced that, and that's what these were to me. I've got a couple more down the line where the energy is kind of coming out of the top of the hill. It's kind of heavy, which is dark, but I kind of decided to put it dark instead of light. The other ones I had are lighter.
I like that too. It kind of reminds me of my hairstyle.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm thinking this heavy duty thought, vortex moving out of the energy and into the earth, out of the earth, and my students think it's a sumo wrestler with a bad hairdo. That's what my students thought. And the turquoise series, I wanted to just kind of put them by themselves. I'm trying to have groupings, and this is the only over and under pieces that I have. And my favorite piece is this darker piece right here. And I'm doing instead of sandblasting with texture, I put texture down and I spray glaze on top of it. And so I'm always looking for another way to apply the glaze. This was applied with torn cardboard. I tore the cardboard, put it on there, sprayed it, and then I probably sandblasted it later as well. You can kind of see the irregular shape, which is kind of nice. It looks like hills or
Landscape.
But hill country is probably the name of that. I think that's what it is. But I really
But I also like the geometric pattern.
here.
You have that in the top.
Oh well, I love the play off these two triangles.
Yeah.
They kind of go back and forth, and that was fun. That was the last thing I finally pulled out. Some pieces are very hard to do, and some are very easy. That was a hard one to pull off. I spent all day just sandblasting, even after the glaze fire. And it's a nice piece. I'm pleased now.
I like it next to this bottom right with its more organic and abstract look to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking a lot of my pieces are figurative. I almost have like a head right here, but I love this kind of abstract painting look.
Mm-hmm.
And I like this piece a lot too. Almost like architecture, some type of architecture in the landscape. This was sandblasting. I'm always looking for another layer that I can put on. So do you want to talk about this one?
Yes.
Okay, this is a piece. As I said, I take pieces that are sometimes failures, and I try to do something to them to make them a success. And this piece had a half-inch crack down the middle, and I tried to figure out what am I going to put in that crack. And my first thought was McDonald's French fries. They'll last forever if I put them in there. And I said, no, I'm going to put glass. I think one of my students suggested glass, and I started putting it in. This took me about 2 months to complete. The name of it is Arctic Thaw. A lot of my titles come after I complete the piece. Sometimes I don't know where I'm going with the pieces, and that's not a bad place to be, because sometimes if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace you've never been. And that's my goal with these pieces. And then that's my goal with this piece. The small pieces on the outside edge is like it's melting and floating off from this iceberg that I created inside my planner. So in that half-inch crack, after all this glue on there, is probably stronger than any other piece of the show. So in every piece, I put it on and I looked at it and go, yes, no, and yes, the composition worked well. I put the glue and then taped it. And came back the next day and took the tape off and put another piece on. So it just took a couple of months to make this piece. My Atlantis series, again 3. The thing that's different about these pieces is that I diluted gold luster, and I sprayed it on with a hairbrush. And that's unheard of. Nobody's ever diluted gold that I know of. And all this dark, almost maroon, is the gold. And some of it you can see a little bit of gold when it gets thick at the top. But I was very pleased because it looks like rays of sunlight coming down through the water on the bottom, the ocean floor. And,
Yeah, I like that.
This is my favorite one out of the 3 because of that feeling. And it's also inlaid porcelain, the white strips of porcelain. And I think it's a successful series. What's that?
I want you to start talking about these.
Yeah, this is the latest thing that I got, and that one is the latest, and I am super
I like that a lot.
excited.
I like that one too.
I like this one, but I like this one better. I always like if I'm lucky, I like the last one I've done. I always like the last thing I've done, and this is it. And I'm putting the ferric chloride on these pieces after they're bisque fired. And this one, I hate to tell my secrets, but because I don't have any, but this one I sprayed on Raku glaze, fired it in electric kill on top of stand. I fired ferric chloride. So it's an iron base, and then my Raku glaze. I'm really excited about that because I can mix up the Raku glaze. Like China paint or something like that, that's expensive. And this is very inexpensive. And this is my Dusk to Dawn series. It's dark blue in the back and then green as it comes closer to daylight. So this whole series and most of my pieces are from a trip that I took to Mesa Verde, and just the Indian dwellers that had homes in the side of the hill. And I'm part Indian, and I'm probably not as much as I claim, probably a little bit less, but I think it does come out in different generations. And I think that's one of the reasons that I work and love clay so much, is that Indian coming out of me. So when I visited these ancient Anasazi Indians, villages and homes, it's never left me. So almost every piece that I make, I'm thinking about that in the beginning, and then I let my mind go and take off in another direction if it needs to finish these pieces. But this one is really speaking to me, and that's the last thing I did. Now what I'm thinking about, I could actually do this on this piece, or that piece, or that piece. After this show, I'll probably take them out and refire them. I don't know.
I like this one too. This one is so feathered. It reminds me of mushrooms on trees.
Yeah. See, that's at Mesa Verde. At Mesa Verde, they had those hills. They also had trees up in those hills at the bottom. And I feel like this is successful in saying what I want to say. And this was fun to do. And it's like creative writing, when you just write whatever comes in your mind. That's the way I made this top piece. And I just I would smash clay together and then poke holes, and then after I did all that, then I would go back in and start trying to pull it together and see how it's going to integrate into the bottom part of this piece. And then I went back in and sandblasted some of the areas back up into it. So I'm pleased with it, but I'm also pleased with this one even more. She was like a national treasure in Japan, and Peter Volk was, to me, the national treasure in the United States if there was one. And so he asked me, what can I do to improve my work? And I said, let the clay look like clay. And I'm thinking about that on most of my pieces, as well as thinking about Mesa Verde, but how can I make this look like clay? And pinching and doing different things to it. And I'm getting that clay feel with this temperature that I'm going to, which is a low temperature. And all through the years, I had my nose up in the air on the low temperature, and now I'm firing to low temperature on these pieces. And it's okay.
You get the colors, especially the ones where he's drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is where the MINDSCAPES, that title came from, this piece here. And it's kind of interesting, because when you do things like this, you don't know if anybody's going to accept it or not. It's like, is it, like I'm doing this, I spent 2-3 weeks drawing this piece, and it's drawn with an underglazed pencil, and I first did the ferric chloride, and that's where I got the color in the background. And then I just let my imagination run, and I started seeing things in it, like you see things in the clouds, and what I would do is just bring those out. And there's just a lot of imagery in this piece that I really love, because a lot of people will come into it and go, oh, I didn't see these fish up here. I've got a Volkswagen bug right there.
I saw that. Yeah.
And then it actually goes into a breast on the other side. Don't you see the breast?
No, I didn't see that.
There's a breast there. There's a naked lady right here. Forrest Goodhue.
Yes, I saw Forrest.
You see Forrest?
Yeah.
And he's in
He's
there.
right here.
Oh, and he's also...
Right here.
Yes, okay. Because I'm trying to think where else. He's been popping up in my drawings. He's
Certainly
right
understandable.
He's right there, and
With his hat.
oh yeah, his hat and beard, and I probably don't need to say any more about that. But
Then it was a fish, and then the fishing net.
yeah, and also the goose's head, and the feathers, and the boat, and then I see this as a cotton ball, is what I see it as. I don't know if that's what I think. I think of it as a cotton ball, because my grandmother would tell me stories when she picked cotton, and so I thought about that as I was doing it, and then the Mother Nature is what I see. This black lady coming up, and she's got these little flowers growing out of her hair, and these little flowers growing out of her hand, and then just so many small things, like this little guy parachuting,
Yeah.
and his parachute's opening up, and then there's a very special rock that my grandfather gave me, and then this bird, man, and there's an embryo and a fish. And it's just like it's just kind of fun. It was just fun to do, and I really enjoyed it. It was more of a meditation, just to sit there with it and see things. And then I sprayed it lightly with a glaze, a low fire glaze, so they're fired in.
Okay.
This doesn't come on.
So yeah, I wanted to know if it was sealed.
Does not come on. And this was my alchemy piece, but it's also converging to singularity, the black hole idea. And I put a big sheet of a stained glass, and not a big, but a round piece of stained glass in that, and melted it in, and it looked absolutely terrible. And so I said, well, it's one of those things, you have nothing to lose. So I took my hammer and chisel, and I started chiseling the glass out, and finally got the shape that I thought was interesting. And then what I did after that, I put gold over this whole black edge, and it looked horrible because it was like too gaudy. So I taped off a few little edges, and I sandblasted the gold off. So I have the gold here. This is what this whole thing looked like before I sandblasted it, what's inside this triangle.
Oh, that's cool.
And it worked out well. I'm very pleased with it. And that's the ferric chloride in the background. And I think we might have covered up Forrest here. I think he's right there. There he is. If you look, see, it's like his hat's off. See his face there?
Yeah.
He was there. And he was really in this one until I messed it up. And when this one was in that stage, I mean, it was the best picture of Forrest I had. The little guy was right in the middle. And then I put a glaze on it, and it went too shiny. And so I had to start sandblasting to make it work, and Forrest disappeared. I know, but it's okay.
He's in there.
He's there. He's in everything I do. Geez, when the guy takes your class for 15 years. And
Yeah.
This one, I'm really excited about this, doing this little spiral. I'm going to make a teapot, and that's going to be the handle, and I'm going to make a spout that looks like that too. Okay. That's good. And this is it's a little bit older piece, but it's my figurative piece. It's almost like a baby in the mother's arms, and a pietà is what I call it. And I was very pleased with the color. This was one of those heavy pieces. And these pieces in the bag, basically that's that vortex that I was telling you about when after going to Sedona. Just that trip, that same vacation, it was like, blew my mind, being out in that area. I thought I was going to go and that was going to be where I want to live the rest of my life. And it wasn't, but yet I had something to learn from being out there. And I've never, I just still to this day, and that was a long time ago, like 40, 30 years ago.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and it still influenced me today. And it's going out to Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde and all these different canyons, that what I see with my pieces, if I could take a panoramic view and make a cylinder out of it, that's my pops. Is a cylindrical panoramic view of those canyons.
That makes sense.
And being close to those all those really positive Indian spirits that are out there. The Anastasia, that before the white man came, it's thousands of years ago. So they were happy at that time. And they had their own territory before it was taken away. So I don't know. It was interesting. I'm very surprised that I wasn't. I just knew that's where I was going to live. It wasn't home.
Just didn't feel right.
Didn't feel right, but it felt right being there. It felt right doing what I'm doing now, and everything is right here. It wasn't right there.
Yeah.
But I was meant to experience that. And you can see a black hole again, just converging,
Yep.
moving in. And that's what these three are about, which is very obvious. To me, it's very obvious. That, and this one can be hung on the wall, but I like one flat and two up. So that's my black hole
the
series.
three again,
Yeah. And if I do more than three, that means I'm really into it, and that's what that series is about. But I'm not bored with it yet. You know, I'm ready to take it a step further.
I like that. I can't bowl more than 2 games at a time.
Yeah.
I get bored in the third game.
Oh yeah. I know. I love that. I love that assignment. I give to my students. I love to deconstruct the piece, and that's what that was. And to the point where I was tearing, and sometimes you can cut halfway through the clay and pull, and then break that, and get this beautiful clean edge next to a jagged edge. And you slice the clay with a knife. And I was playing around with edges, and I also playing around with composition and placement on these pieces. And the difference in that one, I had different colors of stained glass, so it actually popped, and I like that. This one, I just had window pane glass on top of a blue glaze. And most of the time, it'll take on the color glaze that you have when you put glass on a piece. And I was just lucky to get these nice wave-looking things. I was just like, wow. Sometimes you don't intend some things like that to happen. It's very nice. A sun texture. I love to do this type of texture. And then this is one of my latest platters. And I spent a day sandblasting it, trying to pull off a good design. And I feel pretty good about it. And the piece in the corner is called the Burning Bush. This is my homage to Venus of Willendorf. And I'm familiar with the cave woman. And that's when I did this, I thought about her. And sometimes you have to let go of a piece before you can arrive at it. And so I was like, nothing was working. And so I took a board and whacked it. And then I whacked it again. And it started working after I did that. Sometimes it frees you up. Like, you're so careful with these pieces. You touch them 1,000 times so they don't look like they've been touched at all. And sometimes you just got to, the heck with it, I'm going to whack it. And I did that, and that opened it up, and then I started making other marks on it, and it worked after that. But I was thinking about that sculpture when I was doing this, that very primitive, and then I was also thinking about those hills and mountains out in New Mexico, and Arizona, Colorado. And this piece behind it, I didn't like it. I didn't like this sticking up so tall. So I just broke it off. And then I went ahead and fired it a little different way, each piece, and then glued it back together. Now I like it. I didn't like it before, but now I got these little bit of variations in the top 3 pieces up here. And trying to think the title of it, I can't remember. Stupa is a building that the Buddhists have, and the top of it goes up to a point. And I had someone point that out to me, it was amazing. I looked at a picture of it and I was like, whoa, that's my piece. So I went ahead and named it Stupa. This is the first time I've shown this piece. I've done it several years ago, and I like it because it's just such a clean shape, very simple, and that variety that you were talking about. It was not supposed to be blue like this. It was supposed to be a combination of warm and cool color, blue against brown and orange, and it turned out blue because I sprayed more blue instead of brown and orange, and I'm very pleased with it. And I'm also pleased that I got to show it because it's the first time it's been seen.
Now here's a two.
Yeah, here's two. I'm sure I've got a third one at the house. And these are my Henry Moore pieces, right? Especially that one. I just love the idea. I love Henry Moore. I love his work. And I love the form. It looks like it's been, as you said, worn away by time, by river, by whatever, and it's naturally formed. If I can achieve that in my work, that's pretty great. Where it looks like it just happened instead of, like I was telling you about, it takes 1,000 touches to make it look like hadn't been touched at all, and that was my goal on that piece. I wanted it clean.
It's naturally made, not handmade.
That's it.
Man-made.
Yes, and that's what's so beautiful. Henry Moore did so beautiful.
You did it well here too.
Oh, thank you. And we'll talk about that piece in a second. Edgar Allan Poe. Yes, it's one of these pieces that I tell you that when things aren't working, I take a stick and I'll whack it, and I whack this piece, and I had a really nice V shape going down into the base of it. So I decided, well, what would happen if I throw the clay, and I know I could do the points, that's pretty easy for me to do, and I would just slam it in. And I did that, and I'm going, that's pretty good. Now, do I want to save this piece, meaning this was solid clay, this had all kind of crunched up stuff inside of it. I had to do surgery. I had to cut this in half, hollow it out, hollow out the inside, and then attach it all back together so it looked like it hadn't been taken apart. I said, do I want to do that? And that's what I did for 2 weeks. I mean, not off and on for 2 weeks, but I went back in, maybe it's a week, but it's like this is hollow and this was cleaned out and had all kind of stuff inside of it that was kind of crunched up.
So, I'm terribly unfamiliar because it had a little bit of, so this is an actually solid piece with air in the middle. There's no air hole that was required when you fired it?
No, okay. This is thrown and it's a cylinder that's got crunched. This was a solid piece of clay that after I slammed it on there, it took on the shape. I had to cut it in half, take it off, cut it in half, hollow it out, put it back on, and have a vent hole.
A vent hole. That
goes to the inside. And maybe there's probably not even a bottom to it on the inside. I'm not real sure. It's been a while. But
that's what I was getting at.
This was hollowed out and definitely as a vent hole, or it wouldn't have made it to the fire.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wondered.
And some of these were kind of getting a little bit morbid, and so that's why I started going very light with the titles, like Edgar Allan Poe, and then this this is the Dr. Seuss
that's what made me
letter opener.
Dr. Seuss letter opener.
And just I was very fortunate to get that texture on that horn up at the top. It was supposed to be just stripes going completely around, and the glaze just made it run a quarter of an inch.
So now it's zigzaggy.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. And this piece was the same way, that I started to sandblast a spiral that went all the way up, and I did this far and went, I'm done. I knew I was done. I had to stop at that point. And I can't think of what my title is on this piece. I just glued this piece into the bowl. It's not fired in, but it's glued in. And you can see I did 4 of these. That's the maximum. Because it's pretty simple to make these little points. And maybe I'll revisit those. I don't know. I haven't decided. Again, I could do something like this as a teapot.
Yeah.
That could be very interesting.
Yes.
I love the idea of making teapots out of some of my more creative pieces. and I'm always reworking these in my mind. This one I figured out exactly what to do to it to make it better. If I would have put holes all the way up, that would have been a dynamic piece. And I can't do it now, but like maybe another piece I can do it. Because I put all these holes in there and I'm going, what do I do to make this better? And finally it just came to me recently to put the holes. The red piece is a red glaze fired to the high temperature, put back into the kiln, fired it at a low temperature, and it became redder.
Oh, really?
I've never heard of anybody doing that. And I accidentally did it, and it worked. This is cranberry red, and I'm really happy just with the color.
I am too. And I've not seen you work much in that color before.
I don't work in red. I like it, but it's just, it's a beautiful color, but it's, to fire it again at the low temperature and get better color. I do a lot of experimentation with refiring at low temperatures, and I'll get some very interesting things. It changes the color.
Back to the fossil, like.
Yeah, the fossil, and as I said, I like to do that. That's fun to do. I chop the clay, and I expect it to crack every once in a while because I don't know what the thickness is on the bottom of those chops, and it never cracks. It always is just, I guess it's the clay making the clay more dense.
And that looks like a tree.
It is a tree, and this is my bow tree, and this is again, it's like, what can I do to this piece because I can't stand it, I gotta do something to it. And this is my favorite white glaze I put on and you fire it at a low temperature. And this is beginning to look like a tree. I first put on the glaze on the outside and I'm turning it around, and as I'm turning, the glaze pools inside the platter and it starts to look like a tree. I said, well, that's cool. Maybe I'll get back in here, take my finger and pull some of that white glaze out, and I made a tree out of it. Well, this one I made at the exact same time, and I was playing with both of them, and I did the same thing, and I was trying to decide whether to let these dots connect up, because it's like there was a little bit of a tension that's happening with the dots coming in. And I'm just basically turning the piece on the wheel and adding so much white glaze, and just so much it drips to the center. And I really like with the different layers that I'm getting. This was fired about 3 times, both of them, and I got something totally different from each one. And this is just freedom, you know. It's like, have fun. You know, this was just fun. It's fun to do. More about abstract finger paint, and then letting the marks show through around the marks. I love that. Love to do that. I love to do finger painting. I'm a kid at heart. This was one of my first pieces that I put texture on and sandblasted through the texture, which I feel like that's a very successful piece.
I like that one.
Thank you. It's more of that outer space look, like stars popping up. This is one of my favorite pieces. I have a lot of favorites, but this is one of my favorites. This is a bamboo garden and spirits floating around in the bamboo garden. And you can almost see some type of a bamboo gate, top of a gate at the top of the bamboo coming through. And this is Shino glaze, which is very Japanese. And it's one of them that I put carbon on top of it, and the carbon went into the glass during the fire. This is one of my more successful pieces. This is the red veil. And again, you see the sandblasted edges. I needed to integrate this kind of a tan in with the red, so I needed to come across and sandblast into the area. Sometimes it's a little difficult when you're drawing or you're painting that you have a line going through the center, go from one side to the other is hard sometimes. And I do it on purpose. I want to integrate one side to the other.
Yeah, I like that piece too.
This was when I was doing the mocha, I call it mocha confusion. It's mocha diffusion. And I was taking cigarette butts, putting black oil in them, and then taking the tobacco out and putting black mason stain, and then squirting it and on top of porcelain, and it would kind of diffuse into it. But I always used recycled cigarettes. I didn't buy them. I was determined not to buy a pack of cigarettes. So I got smokers to save me their butts, and I boiled those.
Interesting.
Yeah. This piece is kind of body parts, female body parts, landscape, cylinders. So I don't know. I really like this piece a lot. I like the matte glazes because you can actually see the form better when it's a matte glaze and you're not dealing with all the different reflections in the room from lights. And I'm very pleased with the variety of glaze that's on this piece, from dark to light, and it has that copper patina look. And I'm looking at this going, why haven't I done this again? You know, so I need to do more of these pieces. But I'm off in another direction over here, so I don't know. I personally like this piece of art. It's almost like a head, arm coming up over the head, Modigliani or Picasso. Or, I'm not comparing myself. I'm a little more abstraction. Oh my goodness! Everything. I believe that everything influences artists. You know, it's like everything. Who you're talking to, what are you doing? You bring all of that into it. Who's your teacher? Who's your mentor? And so many artists, so many teachers. And Lamar has been a tremendous asset for classes and professors that have added Lamar.
Sure, I think so. I like the color.
Yeah, this is my life force is the name of it. This is like this little guy is there's energy going through his veins, you know, it's alive. And that's what I like about it. This is I put in the forest made a matte clear glaze, and then before I put it on, I did an oil spot black wipe off and made it just in these little designs. If you look closer, there's little demons all over. Sometimes I've got two little dots, and it's usually some type of a little animal. And I had these animals look like they were fighting each other. I was kind of having fun doing that. And it's kind of suppressed now since when I fired it, it just ran. And I was very pleased with the results. I had no idea this was going to happen. But I think I could do it again, but I haven't tried. But this I think is one of the stronger pieces in the show.